Hello and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. U.S. President Donald Trump has dismissed Iran's response to U.S. proposals to end the war as totally unacceptable. Tehran reportedly sent a counter-proposal through Pakistani mediators, which included several high-stakes demands. The Korean government has concluded that the bulk carrier, which caught fire near the Strait of Hormuz last week, was struck by unidentified objects. Authorities have yet to determine who carried out the attack. The White House has announced that President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping will hold a summit meeting in Beijing this Thursday. Security issues involving Iran and Russia are expected to dominate the highly anticipated talks. U.S. President Donald Trump has rejected Iran's latest proposal to end the war, calling the terms totally unacceptable. The development marks a setback for Trump, who said last week that the war would be over soon. Our Park Jun-an starts us off.
U.S. President Donald Trump has dismissed Iran's response to a proposal by Washington to end the war as totally unacceptable. Taking to social media on Sunday, Trump said he had reviewed the response from Iran's representatives and expressed his clear disapproval. According to reports from Iranian state media, Tehran sent a counter-proposal through Pakistani mediators, which included several high-stakes demands. Those are believed to include the payment of war reparations by the United States, full Iranian sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz, an immediate end to all sanctions, and the release of seized Iranian assets. While a ceasefire agreed last month largely remains in place, U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Mike Waltz said a diplomatic resolution to end the war is being pursued, with Trump giving diplomacy every chance. Speaking to ABC News on Sunday, Waltz said it remains the president's decision to determine what constitutes a ceasefire violation, when to resume hostilities, or when to take a diplomatic route. Waltz also pointed to mounting economic pressure on Tehran, saying the U.S. naval blockade has effectively crippled Iranian shipping in and out of the country. Diplomatic channels remain open through mediators in Pakistan, though no new dates for high-level talks have been announced. Park Jun-an, Arirang News.
The South Korean government has concluded that last week's fire aboard the HMM Namu was caused by unidentified objects striking the vessel. Investigators say the cargo ship was struck twice near the Strait of Hormuz, though authorities have not identified who launched the attack. Our Oh Soo-young has the details.
It was not an accident, but an attack that set a Korean container ship ablaze near the Strait of Hormuz, though the source of the strike remains unidentified. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Pagus said Sunday that the vessel, the HMM Namu, was struck by two unidentified flying objects while anchored near the United Arab Emirates. The objects hit the ship last Monday at around 3:30 p.m. local time in two strikes about 1 minute apart, causing flames and smoke on board. The outer hull on the port-side stern was damaged across a width of about 5 meters, with the impact extending about 7 meters into the vessel. CCTV captured the objects and engine debris has been recovered from the scene. But further analysis is needed to identify the exact type, size and origin of the projectiles. Further investigation is required, with the source of the attack also unknown.
The government will thoroughly determine the cause of the incident and work to prevent a recurrence, including through international cooperation and all possible measures to ensure the safety of Korean nationals. It is also reviewing participation in U.S.-led initiatives, including the Maritime Freedom Construct.
U.S. President Donald Trump has accused Iran of firing on the Korean-operated ship, urging Seoul to join his Project Freedom plan to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's embassy in Seoul has denied any involvement. On Sunday evening, Iranian ambassador Saeed Kuzechi was seen arriving at the Foreign Ministry. Park said the ambassador was to meet First Vice Foreign Minister Park Eun-ju, with Seoul set to explain its preliminary findings to Tehran. He said Iran was being consulted as a related country, while stressing Seoul had not concluded who carried out the attack. The Panama flagged ship, operated by South Korean shipping firm HMM, was among the vessels stranded in the Strait of Hormuz during the Middle East conflict. There were 24 crew members on board, including 6 Koreans, with no injuries or casualties reported. The Blue House said earlier Sunday that a 7-member on-site investigation team in Dubai had completed its fieldwork. A National Security Council meeting was held the same afternoon with relevant ministries in attendance to discuss the vessel. Woo-seok, Arirang News.
U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping are set to meet in Beijing this week for high-stakes talks, which are expected to focus on Iran, Russia, and the growing economic tensions between the world's two largest economies. The summit comes as Washington increases pressure on Beijing over trade, security concerns, and alleged support networks tied to Tehran and Moscow. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
The White House announced Sunday that U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping will hold a summit meeting in Beijing on Thursday. It will be the first face-to-face meeting between the two leaders in about 6 months since they met during the APEC summit in Busan last October. Security issues surrounding Iran and Russia are expected to dominate the talks. The Trump administration believes China has indirectly supported both countries through trade, dual-use goods, and exports tied to military and industrial sectors. Senior U.S. officials say Trump is expected to press China on those concerns, especially after Washington recently imposed sanctions connected to Iran and Russia-related trade activities. Economic issues are also expected to be a major factor. The two sides are likely to discuss the creation of new U.S.-China trade and investment committees aimed at managing bilateral disputes and expanding cooperation. Possible agreements in aviation, agriculture, energy, and space are also expected to be on the agenda. The U.S. president is expected to arrive in Beijing on Wednesday evening and hold multiple meetings with President Xi over 2 days, including a state dinner and working lunch. Meanwhile, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is expected to visit Seoul this week before traveling to China. During his one-day visit, Bessent is expected to meet South Korean Finance Minister Koo Yoon-chul to discuss foreign exchange markets and broader economic cooperation. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And now for more on the situation in the Middle East and how this week's highly anticipated summit between U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping will affect the course of this war. We're joined today by Professor Mohammad Gura, Professor of Middle East Economics at Hankuk University of Foreign Studies. Professor Gura, thanks for coming on today.
My pleasure.
So Iran has responded to the U.S. ceasefire proposal to end the war, but Trump called it unacceptable. So where is this war heading?
Exactly what you mentioned, Ms. P. We're heading for more conflict. We're heading for more escalation. We have to remember we have been in this process of negotiations to reach some sort of a deal for more than a month now, actually. We have reached that end. Trump has explicitly said that he rejects what Iranian has offered. And to be honest, also Iranian didn't offer much. If you are comparing what they offered at the last proposal with what we have been given before the war during the Geneva meetings, it's more or less the same. So Iranians know what they are doing. They are trying to gain time to put more economic pressure to the world for the global economy and so on. And they think time is on their side. And they are not really that away from reality. Actually, we have some reports that say that Iranian economy can last, in this case, for 2 or 3 months even under pressure. So Iranians are trying to gain more time. But I think Trump and Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, will not let this go away soon. We're heading for more conflict, more escalation. I don't think we're heading for a full-blown war again, but we're heading for more covert operations, more specific operations inside of Iran in the coming few days.
Right, and Trump is expected to meet with Chinese President Xi this week. How might his Chinese trip affect the course of this conflict?
Well, it's of course it's a very tricky situation. On the one hand, Trump wants to play game with the Chinese authorities, with the Chinese leader. He doesn't want to escalate the situation while he's meeting the Chinese, President Xi Jinping. But at the same time, we know how Trump is. We know he likes theatrics. We know he likes that he likes to show that he's the boss. He's the man in power. So I think what will happen is that he will start to signal his strength through again covert operations and through more operations in Iran. Maybe even capturing the island of Farj in the Hormuz Strait to signal to the Chinese that he's in power. He's the man controlling the situation, that he's not being forced by Iranians so far. So I think this is what Trump will try to do. He will try to send a clear message to the Chinese that he's still in power. We have also to remember, and this should be very quickly, we have to remember that what Trump's strategy have been establishing all this, the Venezuelan attack, the Iranian attack, to counterweight the Chinese influence. So I think Trump will be very explicit about his signals in the coming few days also.
I see. And here in Korea, officials announced that the damaged Korean-operated cargo vessel that caught fire near the Strait of Hormuz last week was actually struck by unidentified objects, but it's still unclear who's actually behind the attack. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, to be honest, I think the Korean authorities are very diplomatic, I have to say. I mean, of course, I have watched your excellent report that the Iranian ambassador has been summoned to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to have a talk about this and so on. Korean authorities didn't explicitly say it was the Iranians, but I mean, on the other hand, we know that this happened to other ships. It happened to Japanese ships. It happened to Greek ships, to UK ships as well. So, and this is a tactic that has been established by the IRGC for a long time. This asymmetric conflicts in the Hormuz Strait to send also a pressure and to send a message that risks are increasing, that we have problems here, that we should act. I mean, that the global economy is in shambles and so on. I think they are putting this pressure. Korean authorities are trying to be very diplomatic. They know that that the Iranian oil is very much needed, and they have, of course, historical ties with Iran, so they are very sensitive about this. However, I think you don't need to be really, expert when it says that Iranians are behind such kind of attack. At least this is the way I look at it, because it happened also before. Also, one very quickly, I have to mention that it was struck twice. So as the Korean MOFA have mentioned, this was a deliberate attack. This is not something that happened haphazardly. No, this is a deliberate attack. This is a deliberate message, and we should act upon it with this idea in our minds.
I see. And while that's happening in Lebanon, the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah is still ongoing. And Lebanon's health ministry says Israeli attacks have killed more than 120 people across the country in the last week. Where is the conflict heading between Israel and Lebanon?
Unfortunately, again, it's heading to more conflict and more confrontation. We have to remember that 1/5 of Lebanon is now being held by Israeli forces. Hezbollah is still attacking Israel, and Israel is using the alibi that it's not secure, and Hezbollah is not stopping also the attacks. And Lebanese people are the ones who are suffering because of that. We have to remember millions have left their homes everywhere. Israel attack is reaching everywhere in Lebanon. It's not only reaching the south of Lebanon, it's also reaching Beirut and everywhere in Lebanon. So what we need to be cautious about, or what we need to monitor, is that there is a meeting that this will be a third round of meetings between Israeli authorities and Lebanese authorities that will happen in Washington in a few days. It's the 14th and 15th of this current month, and suppose it's done, of course, under the American pressure to reach some sort of agreement. All the agreements that has been reached by the Lebanese and the Israelis so far is only some sort of a gentleman's agreement. And, when it's not written, it's not really that much respected, to be honest. We need something to be written. We need a clear guideline. Hezbollah will not stop anytime soon. And I think we need to reach some sort of a conclusion for the sake of the Lebanese people who are suffering right now, actually.
I see. I guess we'll have to see how that meeting between the two sides plays out. All right. Thank you so much for your time and insight this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
Seoul's Defense Minister An Gyu-baek departed for Washington on Sunday for what are expected to be high-stakes talks with senior U.S. defense and congressional officials. The visit comes as Seoul and Washington try to manage growing differences over the timing of the transfer of wartime operational control, known as OPCON, as well as stalled negotiations surrounding South Korea's push to develop nuclear-powered submarines. An is scheduled to meet U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth on Monday in Washington. Observers expect the discussions to cover a wide range of alliance issues, including the OPCON transfer, shipbuilding cooperation, and security concerns in the Middle East. The global buzz surrounding Netflix's Korean hit series If Wishes Could Kill hasn't slowed down since its release. And one of the standout factors behind its success is the cast, largely made up of rising stars. Our culture correspondent Park Gun-woo spoke with one of the lead actors.
A wish granted, but at the cost of your life. That's the chilling premise behind Netflix's latest Korean horror hit Kirigo, or If Wishes Could Kill, which climbed to the top of the platform's global non-English TV chart the second week after release.
우선 기리고가 지금 넷플릭스 1위를 차지했는데요. 먼저 너무 축하드리고요. 1위를 딱 처음 하셨을 때 어떤 기분이셨나요?
When I woke up, my phone was flooded with congratulatory messages. I felt incredibly happy and thought to myself, wow, so this is what this kind of feeling is like.
One of the standout factors behind the series' success is its cast, which is largely made up of rising actors, including Hyun Woo-seok. Hard work behind the scenes became one of the driving forces behind the show's popularity.
Since this was such a major production, I initially felt huge pressure, but was able to overcome it thanks to the support of my fellow actors and the staff. I even arrived early on set to study coding with my teacher, which helped make my performance more convincing.
One critic said the appeal of new faces may have resonated even more strongly because the series was released on a streaming platform.
The new faces helped maintain viewer immersion, while the strong storytelling kept audiences engaged. Unlike theaters, streaming series rely less on star power and more on the quality of the story and acting.
Insiders also say the uniquely Korean horror elements have resonated with global audiences.
Factors like shamans gave the series its own distinct identity, and I think that became one of its biggest strengths. Of course, horror is about fear and jump scares, but beyond that, viewers also connected with the characters' relationships and chemistry.
The series combines traditional Korean shamanism with modern digital devices to create fear in a very contemporary way. The idea of making wishes through a smartphone app in exchange for death feels both like a survival game and a modern take on exorcism, which appears to be resonating strongly with overseas viewers.
The critic added that the future of K-horror lies not only in jump scares, but in compelling storytelling and detailed world building. And judging by the global response so far, audiences around the world may already wish for what Korean horror has to offer next, even a season 2 for Kirigo. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
Korean ramyeon is gaining popularity in Japan, one of the toughest noodles market in the world. Riding the global popularity of Korean culture, our Hyun explains how K-ramyeon is rapidly expanding in the Japanese market.
Harajuku, the heart of downtown Tokyo. At a Korean ramen eatery that opened last year, a steady stream of young people familiar with K-culture continues to visit regularly.
I first tried it in Korea and loved it so much that I came back for more.
Korea Expo Tokyo 2026, held in April at the Sunshine City Convention Center, was packed with crowds eager to taste Korean ramen. Last year, Korean ramen exports surged 21.8% year-on-year to hit a record high of $1.521 billion or approximately 2.22 trillion won. The export value, which was less than 1 trillion won in 2022, has more than doubled in just 3 years, maintaining a steep upward trajectory. While the market size is still modest, it is highly significant with a fast growth rate exceeding 23% year-on-year, especially given its symbolic status as a birthplace of ramen. The Japanese ramen market is valued at approximately 7 trillion won. It is a major battlefield where countless new products are launched every year. In this competitive landscape, K-ramyeon is carving out a niche market by leading with its unique signature spiciness. Coupled with the global spread of K-content, the brand awareness of Korean ramen continues to soar. Cha Yoon-kyung, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Chu Ji-hyun, and this is The World Now. Passengers and crew from the hantavirus-stricken cruise ship MV Hondius began disembarking in Tenerife on Sunday. They are boarding government evacuation flights back to their home countries, where they will isolate under national protocols to prevent further spread. The World Health Organization recommended a 42-day quarantine for all passengers. So far, 3 people have died and 4 others remain hospitalized. France confirmed on Sunday that 1 of 5 French passengers being repatriated showed symptoms during the flight. Health officials stressed the risk to the general public remains low. The U.S. Center for Disease Center director said, quote, "This is not COVID, and we don't want to treat it like COVID." Russian President Vladimir Putin says he believes the war in Ukraine, quote, "is coming to an end." He made the remarks on Saturday, just hours after he vowed victory at a scaled-back Victory Day parade. Putin said he would be willing to negotiate new European security arrangements, naming Germany's former Chancellor Gerhard Schroeder as his preferred negotiating partner. He added that a meeting with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky was only possible once a lasting peace deal was in place. The remarks came as a Trump-brokered ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine took hold from Saturday through Monday, with both sides also agreeing to exchange 1,000 prisoners. Trump said he would like to see the ceasefire extended significantly. There were no reported violations from either side. In Indonesia, the bodies of 2 Singaporean nationals have been found on Mount Dukono 2 days after the volcano erupted. Their bodies were found on Sunday holding each other under rock debris near the crater rim. The body of an Indonesian hiker who also died in the eruption was found the day before. The volcano began erupting on Friday, sending ash as high as 10 kilometers. Indonesia's volcanology agency is maintaining its 3rd highest alert level and has banned any activity within 4 kilometers of the crater. In India, the Iran war has created a shortage of Diet Coke, which is sold exclusively in aluminum cans there. Indians are sharing stories on social media of Diet Coke shortages and hoarding. Some bars and restaurants are even holding Diet Coke parties and are even running can decorating workshops and cocktail menus built around the shortage.
It was a beautiful weekend for getting outdoors, but the weather is taking a different turn today. Rain is set to move in across much of the country starting this afternoon, and the showers will start in the afternoon across the central regions before spreading nationwide by tomorrow morning. And Chungcheongdo and Jeollado provinces could see 10 to 60 millimeters of somewhat heavy rainfall. Most of the central regions might get 5 to 20 millimeters until tomorrow morning, along with thunderstorms. So the capital area will notice much cooler highs with rain and clouds, with a high of 21 degrees Celsius here in the capital. But most of the southern provinces will have sunnier skies with warmer highs, getting up to 26 degrees in Daegu and Gyeongju this afternoon. And after this round of rain moves out, temperatures will rise quickly with a mini heat wave in the forecast from Thursday, with an expected high of 30 degrees Celsius here in the capital this weekend.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.